Story we told you about at the top of the hour. A train collides with a tractor trailer at a crossing in Rosedale. We do know that the truck driver was taken to the hospital, but we don't have word on that person's condition.
And this is not the first accident to happen at this intersection. In fact, it's been almost exactly 1 year to the day when there was a massive explosion and fire at that very same crossing.
WJZ investigator Mike Hellgren joins us live with the more on our exclusive series on toxic cargo and the dangers it poses to you. Mike.
Nikki, Rick, toxic cargo is coming through so many of our neighborhoods, and we talked to people in that Rosedale community who fear another derailment. Just in the past day alone, we saw a number of toxic chemicals, including fuels, chlorine, and sodium hydroxide.
Out-of-control fires, leaking toxic chemicals. On average, there's been at least one hazmat transport incident each month in Maryland over the past decade.
America runs on hazardous chemicals. We do. It's a reality of our daily life.
Many you never hear about, but others have an explosive impact. WJZ's investigation with the CBS News Innovation Lab found the most damaging incident was 10 years ago this month in Rosedale, captured on camera when a truck failed to stop at a crossing and a train slammed into it, leaking sodium chlorate and terephthalic acid, which combined and blew up within minutes.
Back up.
Burning for 10 hours, just steps from Brian Hunter's home.
Frightening. It's a pretty big explosion.
Do you still remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very vividly.
The recent toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, put it on his mind again. You don't know what chemicals are coming through your neighborhood.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the trains will actually stop overnight, so we get the smell of kerosene. Sometimes it's pretty strong.
Our investigation found the crisis that unfolded here is one of 24 in-transit hazmat incidents on Maryland's railways between 2013 and 2022. It alone caused $10.7 million in damages.
There's chemical cars that go by here, so there's always a concern that you don't know what they're carrying, and if an accident should happen, you know, what's it going to do to us?
The ungated crossing where the crash caused the derailment looks little changed from our report here a decade ago. CSX did replace the signs here and cut back the vegetation.
I've seen plenty where, you know, somebody will just barely clear that grade crossing and the train will come rolling right past.
Train enthusiast Ramon Rhodes has spent many hours watching this very spot. On a recent afternoon, we saw potentially flammable molten sulfur and liquefied petroleum gas rolling down the tracks.
What kind of chemicals typically come through this route?
Well, you can see all kinds of things. One of the most dangerous is liquid propane gas, and there's a lot of that moves through here. You'll see molten sulfur, you'll see chlorine. If those tank cars get breached, then you've got to evacuate the area. Liquid propane gas, when it starts to bleed off, it'll explode like a bomb.
Because of concerns over terrorism, there's no real-time tracker for the public to know what hazardous chemicals are being transported where. And local officials are blind to many of the exact chemicals coming down the rails. State environmental officials tell WJZ hazmat transport is largely regulated by the federal government, although they do certify those who pick up or drop off hazardous waste within Maryland and are ready to respond to any disaster around the clock.
What happened in Ohio was just, that's an aberration. It doesn't happen on that large of a scale everywhere. But, you know, it's again, railroading is the safest way to move hazardous chemicals.
Data from the Federal Railroad Administration shows nationwide there were fewer than 1,200 derailments last year, down from almost 1,500 in 2011. An estimated 2 to 3% of derailments feature hazardous materials. Just one could turn into a crisis with a lasting impact.
Dangerous chemicals are coming through this center of Baltimore, and there's nothing that the officials can do about it. It's not a matter of could be, they are.
In Baltimore, an increase in freight, including double-stacked cars and potentially more volatile chemicals near her home, is one reason Laura Amley and the group Residents Against the Tunnels are fighting a multi-billion-dollar government project to fix a tunnel bottleneck and expand rail traffic through the city.
They're using this rah-rah passenger train narrative and really almost trying to ignore the freight, keeping the freight out of the picture.
It's widely supported by lawmakers who see the replacement of a 150-year-old tunnel that chokes rail traffic from New York to Washington, D.C. as long overdue, even drawing a high-profile visit from President Biden earlier this year.
This is a 150-year-old tunnel. You wonder how in the hell it's still standing.
It's now time to invest in a new tunnel that will benefit future generations.
What has been so successful is their PR war.
She remembers the 2001 Howard Street tunnel fire when toxic chemicals burned for days below city streets, shut down the Northeast Rail corridor for a week. And she worries about what's coming next down the rails.
Pouring gas. If that explodes, it's all in Baltimore.
Emily wants to see much of the freight rerouted around cities. Some lawmakers are calling for new hazardous transport safeguards on the tracks nationwide. They include upgrades to brakes for trains hauling the most hazardous chemicals.
They cut more than 30% of their workforce in the last 10 years. Think about that. More than a third of their workforce has been cut in the last 10 years, always jeopardizing safety.
There was a push in Maryland's General Assembly last session to mandate two-person crews on freight trains that use the same tracks as passenger trains, a labor standard required in several other states.
It does include an important safety check to guard against disaster and respond to problems as they arise.
All of it designed to prevent a potential crisis.
My son Christopher works in the fire department here locally, and for him to have to go to a train that's on fire, chemical tanks, not knowing what's in there, just the explosion. So he puts his life on the line every day, and this is just one additional thing that he needs to worry about, that I need to worry about. And heaven knows his mother worries about all the time.
An unknown risk close to home. And despite multiple crashes there in Rosedale, there are no plans to put up any gates. Reporting live downtown, Mike Helgren, WJZ.